So today we're looking at Michael's and unusual two-note trumps. So the reason I kind of clump these together is because they're essentially the same convention but with different names. The same branches of the same tree, I should say. Now there are multiple options of the way. I'm going to give you the problem and then I'm going to show you how Michael's unusual no trump looks to solve that problem. But just as a kind of disclaimer, proviso if you will, there are multiple ways of solving this problem and Michael's is but one of them. There are all sorts of different conventions of this vein, like quantum, guess stem. Some people play quest stem, which is a mix of those two. Crow. There's another one I'm forgetting. There's all sorts of different versions. What I'm going to give you is what I think is the most effective for the amount of brain space it requires. It's the most simplistic, in my opinion. There are advantages and disadvantages to playing something else. If you play quest stem or quantum or guess stem or any of those other mixes, there are ups and downs, which I'll talk about in a minute, but essentially this is what I think is the best one, and what I play. I've played them all, and this is the one I found best results with. Okay. The problem I'm referring to, this problem that is solved by all different conventions, is when you have a two-suited hand as an overcaller. So the reason this is a two-suited hand is difficult wherever you are, as an opener or a responder or an overcaller, because basically you require so many bids to express your shape. Because you start with your higher ranking suit, then you bid your lower ranking suit, then you bid your lower ranking suit again, and you finally got across that you've got 5 and 5. By which time you're sometimes at the 5, 6 level, depending on what's going on. So they're difficult hands to deal with, because what you would like to do is bid both suits at once, but you can't do that, especially as an overcaller, because what you find as an overcaller is that north-south in this instance, the opening side, tend to be bidding things. So you overcall, they bid, your partner doesn't raise most of the time, although they could have a fit. Then they bid again, and you find yourself at the 3 level often, with only having shown one of your suits so far. So what Michael's and guess stem and Crow and all these different systems look to solve is this 5-5 hand. Having a 5-5 hand, you would like to express it in one bid and let your partner make an informed decision, job done. So, when the opponents open the bidding, they give you an artificial bid that wasn't otherwise artificial, and that is bidding their suit, a Q bid, if you will. Whenever they open a bidding, there is no need for you to be bidding that suit as a natural bid. So, for example, in this instance, with North opening clubs, you never want to bid clubs naturally, because if you had clubs, you would just stay quiet and wait for them to fester in whatever club contract they end in, hopefully. So therefore, bidding a Q bid is never a natural bid, and therefore we use that to solve one of these problems. The 5-5 nature, the problem of the 5-5 hand is that there are a lot of iterations. It could be 5-5 in these two suits, 5-5 in these two suits, 5-5 in these two suits. So there's all different combinations of different 5-5 shapes. So what we find is that if we just use two clubs as sort of, let's say, a generic, I have a 5-5 hand, it's not very good because your partner doesn't know whether to raise or not. Yeah. They need some information as to what your suits are. So in this instance, you could have 5-5 in diamonds and hearts, 5-5 in hearts and spades, or 5-5 in spades and diamonds. There are 3 different combinations, because one suit is eliminated. We won't have clubs, or we shouldn't be bidding if we have clubs. So what we have to use is we need more bids than just the Q bid to show these 5-5 shapes. So what Michael says, and I'll touch on other systems in a minute, but what Michael says is a direct Q bid, bidding their suit directly, so 1 club, 2 clubs, 1 diamond, 2 diamonds, is as many majors as possible. So it's a majory hand. So if their opening bid is a minor, this shows both of the majors, i.e. 5-5 in specifically hearts and spades. You could be 6-5, you could be 6-6, you could be 7-6, it doesn't really happen. But it's 5-5 minimum. What you want for that bid is good suits, so suits you are happy to overcall. You can be a little bit more loose with your suit quality, given that you have such good distribution. So Jack 10 to 5 and Ace Queen to 5 is probably good enough, given that Jack 10 to 5 is a bit dodgy. What I would say is you would like a 6 loser. 6 loser because your shape tends to be good. You could do it non-vulnerable with a 7 loser, but that is getting somewhat aggressive. And the reason losing trick count is better than points is because it's about your distribution, not about your strength necessarily. Your distribution is the thing that pushes you. So in Michael's system, 1 club, 2 clubs shows as many majors as possible. So in this instance, it is both majors. If they have opened a major, 1 heart, 2 hearts shows the other major, and A minor. So spades in that instance and A minor. But I'll look at that in a minute. Now what we find is that, okay, we've dealt with the majory problems, the hands where we have 5-5 in the majors. What we could have is 5-5 in different suits. So if I just swap the diamonds and the spades, we now need, given that we've just agreed that a direct Q bid is both majors or as many majors as possible, we now need another way of solving these hands. So a hand where you have a minor and a major. Because when you Q-bid a minor, that shows both majors, so 2 clubs here would not be the right bid, because you're showing spades and hearts. So that's where we use the unusual 2 no trumps, which is essentially a branch of the same tree. It's of the same ilk, but it's a slightly different bid. So the reason we use a jump to 2 no trumps to show 5-5 hands is because we, again, don't need it as natural. Again, I'll put a little asterisk there. 1 club, 2 clubs, we don't need 2 clubs as natural, because they have clubs. 1 club, 2 no trumps, we don't need 2 no trumps as natural. Now, if you weren't playing any fancy system, you could argue, well, why isn't that 20 to 22 points in a balanced hand? Or 19, or whatever you want to agree. You could play a jump to 2 no trumps as a super powerful balanced hand. The problem with using it for that is frequency. How often does it happen when you get 20 to 22 points and they open in front of you? The answer is never.
Yeah.
I can't remember a time it ever happening to me.
Yeah.
Because you just don't, I mean, it's rare enough getting 20 points, never mind the fact that someone else has 12. That's just so unlikely.
Yeah.
So we don't really need this bid to show a super mega powerful balanced hand, because they don't exist, is what I'm making that assumption. You'll probably play today and it'll come up now, but typically speaking, you don't get those hands. So we use a jump to 2 no trumps to describe another one of these shapes, another one of these 5-5 shapes. If you did have the super mega powerful hand of too many points to bid 1 no trump, which is kind of 19 or more, you start with a double first, partner does something, and then you bid no trumps. But honestly, it doesn't happen, so I wouldn't worry about it. So a jump to 2 no trumps. In the Michaels system, the unusual 2 no trumps is unusual because you are bidding no trumps when you are specifically not balanced. That's why it's unusual. That shows the 2 lowest unbid suits. So the Q bid shows the majors, or as many majors as possible. The 2 no trumps shows the lowest suit, so as many minors as possible. What we're trying to do is cover the bases by using one for this and one for these. We're trying to cover the shapes. So in this instance, with one of the minors having gone, this bid shows the 2 lowest unbid suits, which in this instance is hearts and diamonds. The thing about Michaels and the unusual 2 no trumps and all the other systems is they adapt depending on what the opening bidder has opened. If they open a minor, you can't, well, if they open whatever suit they open, one of your suits can't be that suit, so it changes, it modifies depending on what they've opened. So in this instance, East can't have clubs, or shouldn't be bidding with 5 clubs. 1 club, Q bid, majors, 1 club, 2 no trumps, 2 lowest unbid suits. Okay. Now, some of you may well be thinking, well, what do you do if you have spades and diamonds in this instance? I've just covered spades and hearts, Q-bid, diamonds and hearts, 2 no trumps, but not spades and diamonds. Now, this is going to be an unsatisfactory answer. The answer is, with the Michaels system, that is one thing you can't deal with when you have spades and diamonds specifically, or spades and clubs, and they open the other minor. So if we had the spades and diamonds hand, if I move the hearts up here, having chopped and changed everything, there are systems that deal with this problem, which I will talk about in a minute, which are Quantum and Crow and all those different systems. If you have 5 spades and 5 of a minor, and they open the other minor, Michaels does not deal with that. So that's one of the, oh God, however many, there are 12 different 5-5 possibility shapes.
But why not? Why can't it mean it?
Well, you could play that 2 no trumps is diamonds and hearts or diamonds and spades. You could play it as many minors as possible with an unspecified major.
Yeah.
But then you're starting to approach towards, I think that's guess stem. You're starting to approach towards a different system. So what Michaels agrees is you try to specify as much as you can. So 1 club, 2 clubs is both majors. 1 club, 2 no trumps is hearts and diamonds. And the spades and diamonds, or spades and a minor, is a problem hand when they open one of a minor. But I will talk about how to deal with this if you're interested in looking at different systems, which are Quantum, guess stem, and all those jets. Okay? So with this particular hand, we are back to the boring world of bidding spades, then bidding diamonds, then bidding diamonds again if you can, playing Michaels. Now I accept that is a flaw of playing Michaels. The reason I think Michaels is good is because you don't have to remember a triage, if you like, of bids, where suddenly there are bids that could be construed as natural but aren't natural. The good thing about Michaels is the bids you are making, you must know they're not natural. So you know something's up. The danger of playing these systems, especially ones that are more complex, is if you forget, it goes very badly wrong. Like in Crow, for example, Crow, you bid 3 clubs over their 1 spade. That shows hearts and diamonds, I think. Does it? Anyway, whatever it shows. But you bid clubs over their spades, and it's not natural. So you've just got to be careful with these other systems. Whereas Michaels, you don't have that concern, is what I'm trying to say. So there's ups and downs. Interestingly, if this opening bid were 1 heart, you could now use Michael's because they've specified one of the majors. What could we bid on this hand now?
2 hearts.
2 hearts. And that shows spades, the other major, and A minor.
That's where I'm getting mixed. That's what I meant last time.
Yes. So it all depends on what they've opened.
Oh, so you can do it if it's a major star. But
Yeah,
not
Correct. It all changes depending on what they've opened, as all these systems do. They all adapt because that is essentially knocked out one of the suits. So there's only 3 suits possible, of which you have 2. Okay? So in this instance, a Q bid of a major shows the other major and A minor. Okay? Again, Michael's has some inefficiency because it's saying A minor, which could be clubs or diamonds. It could be spades and diamonds or spades and clubs. So again, the other systems specify suits but require a 3rd bid. So what I'm saying is Michael's only needs 2 bids, a Q bid and 2 no trumps. The other systems require 3 bids, sometimes a Q bid, a jump Q bid and 2 no trumps, sometimes a bid that looks natural that isn't, for example. But again, I'll talk about that more in a minute. Now, the Q bid and the 2 no trumps can happen at higher levels. So, for example, if this hand opened 3 hearts, showing a normal preemptive bid, 4 hearts would be a Michael's orientated bid. The only thing you've got to be aware of there is you are forcing to a very high level. So you need a better hand. Better hand either shape-wise or points-wise or a bit of both. For me, you would like a 5 loser. Preferably we're approaching 4 loser time because you're potentially forcing your partners to the 5 level if they don't have spades in this instance. So for that hand, you probably want something like that. How good is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 losers. Okay, you want to be approaching the 4-5 loser region. You really don't want to have a normal Michael's bid for a 4 level Michael's because obviously it's forcing much higher. But you can use them. Over a preemptive bid, you can use these bids. Okay, it's just you're a bit higher. That's the only difference.
And then it depends what your partner's going to respond where you end up as well.
Yes, because they might have spades or maybe they want to pick a minor. Who knows? I'll talk about that more in a minute. Now, how do you do the unusual 2 no trumps over 3 hearts? You've got a problem there because you can't bid 2 no trumps. So what is agreed is that the unusual 2 no trumps becomes the unusual 4 no trumps. Again, 4 no trumps is unusual because normally you're slamming with 4 no trumps, but why would you be slamming when you haven't yet A, agreed a suit, and B, you don't even know if you've got enough points for slam? It's unusual to bid 4 no trumps just out of the blue. So what is agreed is the unusual 2 no trumps when you're at these high preemptive levels becomes the unusual 4 no trumps. Again, be aware you are forcing your partner to bid 5 something. So you need a really good hand. Shape-wise.
How often does that come up?
Not very often. Not very often. The earlier ones are far more common than these ones. But it's just worth noting, you can use it. So if these were clubs and diamonds, you could bid 4 no trumps here. You can't bid 3 no trumps, because 3 no trumps looks like you want to play in 3 no trumps. That's why we use 2 and 4, because 2 no trumps is not often to play, and 4 no trumps is not often to play, but 3 often is. So we can't really use that bid as an artificial bid. Okay?
Yeah.
So you can use them at high levels. Alright? Now, one more thing. Now, this is getting fancy, so if you don't want to do this bit, you don't have to, but this is a frilly bit, if you like, to Michael's. If the opponents have specified 2 suits, there are only 2 suits left that you can possibly hold. So making the dealer south now, south opens 1 heart, partner passes. Obviously, partner bids spades or diamonds, that changes things. Oh, sorry, done the wrong suit. So here, we could bid 2 hearts as a Q bid, 3 clubs as a Q bid, or 2 no trumps to show both the lowest unbid suits. So 2 hearts would show spades and diamonds, 3 clubs would show spades and diamonds, and 2 no trumps would show spades and diamonds. And the reason all 3 of them show the same suits is because there are only 2 suits left. They bid hearts, they bid clubs, so we can only possibly have a 5-5 in spades and diamonds.
Can you not just double and say with none?
You could double as well, yeah. You could double as well, which says bid one of the other ones. So you have 4 bids to show the same hand. That's silly, isn't it? So what is agreed is you kind of tweak each bid to show 5-5, 5-4, 6-5, 5-6. You can show all these different shapes. Now, if you don't want to do this, this is fine because to be honest, it doesn't come up very often. But what is often agreed is that when you bid 2 no trumps, that shows equal length suits. So 2 no trumps here for me would show 5-5 or 6-6, a hand that does not have a preference either way. Double would show a hand that does not have 5-5, so typically 4-4 or 5-4, a hand that can't bid both of them naturally. If you have longer, so you have a 6-5 or a 5-6, you then Q bid, you anchor to the one you have longer. So if we bid 2 hearts with this hand, that says I have a 5-5 hand, but because we have anchored to their major suit, we have a longer major suit at South. So therefore this would show 6 spades, 5 diamonds. If we had 6 diamonds and 5 spades, 2 no trumps would show equal length, so 2 no trumps would be right. We would anchor to their minor suit. Do you see?
So this is another place where you actually get anchor.
Yes, we can anchor here because we know our partner knows if we make a 2-suited bid, it's categorically spades and diamonds in this specific sequence because they've mentioned 2 suits.
Yeah.
Now, to be honest, it doesn't happen very often. But I just thought I'd point it out. You can get really, really like smart, if you will. You don't have to do this because it's not going to happen very often. But 2 no trumps is always equal length. Q-bidding one of them shows preference for the one you're Q-bidding, essentially. So double would show, for me, less shape. Bidding 2 no trumps would show equal length. Bidding 3 or 2, depending on which one you're Q-bidding, shows preference for the one you're anchoring to. But don't worry about that too much if you think that that's too complicated. But it is nice to be able to show 6-5 specifically, because your partner then knows the level to sacrifice to more readily, if they want to. Now, just a little point.
What do you mean by less shape in terms of double?
5-4 or 4-4.
Okay.
So a hand that doesn't consider itself as a 2-suitor. It is a 2-suitor in a sense, but it's not as shapely as these Michael's bids. Now, if, just out of interest, they do bid one of your 5-5 suits, what has happened in the kind of general nature of the hand is your hand has decreased in value quite considerably because you now have a fit with the opponents, which means it lends itself potentially to a misfit hand. And suddenly being declared as a less attractive prospect. Nothing has changed about our 13 cards, but what has changed is the information we've now got from North. So what I am now concerned with is me and my partner might not have a fit at all, just like North and South might not have a fit at all. If you do get these 5-5 hands, but someone bids, well, obviously if your partner bids it, that's good. If the opponents bid it before you get there, calm down, because it means the 5-5s are not as good now. You have a choice. You either bid your other suit and treat it as a single-suited hand, or you don't bid at all. That's your option. You don't ever try to show 5-5 if they've named one of your 5s. Because
what would you do? Would you bid your 5-5 suit or...?
I would bid diamonds in this instance because I think my hand's too distributional not to get involved. If it was a bit more flat like that, I would be tempted to pass to see where they go. They might have a fit because we might have a diamond fit, but the chances have really slimmed now. Whereas when they bid 2 clubs, I'm desperate to get involved because the chances of us having a fit are pretty substantial. Okay? So just beware, if they bid your suit before you show you 5-5, you can't just continue and show you 5-5. Doesn't work, all right? And that's because of what's going on in the hand. Okay? All right, now, responding to these Q-bids is very similar to responding to a normal overcall. The only difference is your partner has essentially overcalled 1 suit, overcalled 2 suits, put them in one bid and put that on the table. So what you actually have is very specific information about your partner's hand. They bid spades and hearts all in one amalgamation, if you like. So when they have specified their suits exactly, you essentially treat it as a normal overcall. But you can choose which one you're responding to. So just to take this for an example, 1 club from North, 2 clubs from East, what does that show?
Both majors.
Both majors. So they've got 5-5 in hearts and spades. At least 5, I should say. So South bids 3 clubs, that's some kind of competitive I have a club fit bid, nothing too specific, I would say something like 8 losers. Now as West, essentially what you can do is you can choose your favourite between spades and hearts, based on length, and then respond accordingly. So here our favourite is spades, because of our length. So you just kind of pretend, if you like, that partner has bid 1 spade, and you treat it as normal. So if partner had overcalled 1 spade, we would be willing to go to 3 spades, based on the fact that we've got 4 card support, and plus their 5 is 9, so bidding for 9 tricks is a reasonable bet, level of the fit there. So therefore, bidding 3 spades opposite this Michael's thing is a reasonable thing to do. Because we have 4 card support, we don't really need the points, it's about continuing the aggression. Okay? So here, 2 clubs showing spades and hearts, choose your favourite, in this case spades, and bid accordingly. 3 spades is the bid I would make. What you can do is you can afford to be ever so slightly more aggressive because you know your partner has such a good shaped hand. Their hand is not just a 1 spade overcall. Their hand is a very nice 1 spade overcall because they have a side suit. Okay? So you can afford to be more aggressive. For example, if that were your hand, I would still be quite tempted to bid 3 spades. The level of the fit says 2 spades is the level because we now have 8 trumps between us. But we know our partner has a very nice 1 spade overcall. the fact that they've got spades and hearts. You with me? So you can afford to be somewhat more aggressive because this hand, your partner's hand, really, really wants to be declarer because of the shape they've got. Their defence is going to be not very much. Their offence is going to be quite good because of their shape. What you tend to find is, when you have a fit and they have a fit, a lot of tricks can be made by both sides. Whereas when you have a misfit, not many tricks can be made. So it lends itself to be slightly more aggressive. Now, I don't mean you go cavalier and just go mental if your partners are Michaels, but you can afford to stretch that little bit more.
You said your partner wants to be a declarer, but you'll be a declarer.
Yeah, what I mean is your side.
Your side,
Your
yes.
side, yeah, it's a good point, yeah. Their hand will go down as the double, yeah, fair point. So I would probably bid 3 spades non-vulnerable with this hand, and vulnerable I probably would pass, given the level of the fit is slightly too much. But I empathise with anyone who wants to bid 3 spades at any colours, because I think it's pretty close. Also notice, when you have a double fit, if you have a double fit, you tend to make lots of tricks, because what happens with a double fit is you draw the trumps, then you run your side suit. So you make a lot of tricks. You'll probably lose something like 1 spade, 1 club, 2 diamonds, something in that region on this hand, if your partner's got a bog standard Michael's bid. And that's because you have a fit in both suits. So here you can draw the trumps and then play your side suit, is what often happens with a double fit. So again, you can afford to, you have a license to be slightly more optimistic, let's say. Now, it's a dangerous sentence to say to some of you, because some of you are optimistic already. But, you know, just beware, with their 5-5 shape, they have a lot of playability. So you can stretch.
Yeah.
All right?
So what would West bid then?
I think I would bid 3 hearts on any vulnerability now. Hearts because your hearts are slightly better, but 3 spades is okay as well. I would bid it now on any vulnerability because this double fit is quite nice. Yeah.
And vulnerability, do you factor that in?
Yeah, whenever you're making these kind of stretched bits. Non-vulnerable, you can always afford to stretch here and there. Vulnerable, you should be a full shilling, if you will. All right. Right, now there's a problem. I'll just keep that. In fact, I'll change it slightly because otherwise we've got an easy bid. If they open a major and we Q bid, there's a problem. And the problem is that they have not specified specifically which suits they have. One of them is specified. In this instance, they have spades and another suit. But they haven't named their minor. So you have a problem in this instance because they have, in this instance, spades and diamonds or spades and clubs. You with me? So we need a way of asking them what their minor is. Because we need to know. In this instance, I mean, if we had a spade fit, we could just bid spades, the correct number of spades, that's easy. If we haven't got a spade fit, we need to ask them, what is your other suit? Now again, Quantum and Gestem and all those deal with this problem by specifying specific suits, so you don't have this problem. Don't let me forget, because I do want to talk about the other conventions. So in this instance, what we do over a Michael's bid that does not specify the minor, which in this case must be major and A minor, is you bid no trumps. The reason we use 2 no trumps as an artificial bid is because these hands basically never want to play no trumps. Because this hand is so shapely, no trumps is so exceptionally rarely the right thing to do. They typically always want one of their suitors trumps based on the way the hands play. So here, 2 no trumps says, I don't have a fit for your major, because if you did, you would have told them. And I want you to bid your other suit. So in this instance, bid 3 clubs or 3 diamonds. They might get forced. It might go 3 hearts here, and then they have to bid 4 clubs or 4 diamonds. Obviously, that's their choice. Now, they don't have to if they consider their hand minimum. All right. But a 2 no trump bid in response to a non-specific Michaels says, what's your minor? Okay. That's if you haven't got a fit for the major. If you have got a fit for the major, you just bid the appropriate number of majory things. 2 spades, 3 spades, 4 spades, depending on your shape. All right.
What's the point count range done?
For this,
For responder.
responder has to bid, so 0 plus,
Oh, that's...
because they can never pass.
Yeah.
So yeah, that makes it easy for you, doesn't it?
I'm always 1 point over. Sure.
You'll have -1 then. Now the good thing about the 2 no trumps is that it is always specific. It is always the 2 lowest unbid suits. So therefore you don't need an enquiry, which is useful because they've just taken our enquiry away. You don't need an enquiry because they have a specific shape here. In this instance it's 5-5 in the minors because they've not bid. They've bid a major. So this is the 2 lowest unbid suits, which is clubs and diamonds. Here I would go semi-mental in clubs and diamonds, given that we have a colossal double fit. We have 9 cards in 2 suits, which is amazing. I would be looking to sacrifice over their 4 heart bid quite readily because of the double fit you've got. Okay? And obviously if you have a preference, you bid the one you prefer. In this instance, diamonds. But this hand has decreased in quality now because the double fit has vanished. Okay? So you don't really have a problem over the two-note trump. You just assume which one you like. I like clubs, not diamonds, and then bid the appropriate number. Sometimes the appropriate number you can't bid. You want to bid 2 clubs, but you're having to bid 3 clubs because they've forced you up. You just do your best in that instance. You have to bid. You never pass this two-note trumps thinking, well, I've got the other 2 suits, you've got those 2 suits, it'll be all right. It never is. Their hand never plays nicely in no trumps because you just don't have the correct, if you like, kind of hands to go together.
Yeah.
All right, so you have to bid. Even if you had 2 clubs and 1 diamond, you have to choose clubs over diamonds, unfortunately. One more thing I wanted to point out before we get playing. I've just been kind of harping on about Michaels and it being a good thing. There are different systems that deal with the problems I've just been talking about. The problems are a Q bid, you have spades and a minor. That's not necessarily attractive because you don't know which minor it is. Sometimes you don't get the room to talk. They bid 4 hearts and you don't know whether to sacrifice or not. And also, when it goes 1 banana, 2 no trumps, you can't necessarily show spades and a minor when they've opened a minor. So there are, as I say, there are gaps in the Michaels system. There are ways of solving this using systems such as Crow, Quantum, Guesstem, which I've been talking about those. But I just wanted to touch on what they essentially do. They use a third bid to show different kind of 5-5 shapes, if you will. So when they open one, let's say 1 diamond, for example, diamonds are now out. So you could have hearts and clubs, spades and clubs, or spades and hearts. So there are 3 different orientations of the 5-5 shapes. So Michaels uses 2 bids to try and catch all, and it doesn't quite do it, but it's more straightforward. Quantum, Guesstem, and Crow, and others, there are others, use 3 bids to specifically name each variation. Now, the downside is that you now need a 3rd string to your bow, which means you have to use a 3rd bid to show the other option. So, correct me if I'm wrong for people who know it, I believe, it depends on your system, but you've got 2 diamonds as an option, 2 no trumps as an option. So essentially, similar to Michael's, they use the Q bid and the 2 no trumps to show some kind of 5-5 hand. And then some systems use a jump to 3 clubs as artificial, and some systems use a jump in the opponent's suit to show something. Okay, so you can use these bids as artificial if you want as the 3rd tier to your 5-5 shape showing convention. God, that's a hard sentence. So,
Wouldn't 3 clubs
be clubs.
3 clubs, that's a new suit.
Well, exactly. So I would play that as clubs. But this is the downside. You see, for example, in Crow, which we're not, I'm not suggesting, in Crow, this would show clubs and hearts.
Well, I would never.
No, I don't think it's good either, personally.
I've seen
I
people
prefer
use
this
it
one.
and confuse themselves.
I've actually done it myself, where it was 1, whatever it was, 3 clubs, because I had 6 clubs and a weak jump. And my partner alerted it because he said that we were playing Crow, and I never thought we were playing Crow. And it just goes drastically wrong, very quickly. So I don't like, what some systems use, Crow is one of them, is they use a jump to 3 clubs as an artificial bid to name one of these 5-5s that we're missing in Michael's. The thing I dislike is, I like bidding clubs if I have them. So I don't like this one at all. I really, really don't like using 3 clubs as an artificial bid when it could be construed as natural. For 2 reasons. Firstly, you want to be able to bid clubs naturally when you get lots of them and not many points. And secondarily, your partner might interpret it as clubs. Because we are human, we're bound to make some mistakes with these complex systems some of the time. So the more straightforward you can make it, the better. Now, what I don't mind is using a jump Q bid. Using a Q bid as some kind of shape. Using a jump Q bid as some other kind of 5-5 shape. I don't mind this, and this is heading towards Quantum now. I don't mind that. My personal preference is Michael's because it's more straightforward. That's my answer. But you can use this. For example, I think, if I get this right, this is the 2 extreme suits. So this would be spades and clubs.
Yes, just 2 of a minor.
This is hearts and clubs, I believe. Again, I'm not used to this because I'm not used to this system. And then this would be the other 2, which is, what's that? Spades and diamonds? Yeah. No?
No,
Diamonds.
spades and hearts.
Spades and hearts, thank you.
Yes, the 2
That's
majors.
Everyone
Yeah.
else.
It
Yeah.
differs
Yeah.
between.
It depends whether you play Guesstem or Quantum, and also what they open.
It
Yeah.
depends on a minor or a major.
Yeah, yeah.
I
So,
actually play quantum. I find it very easy.
yeah, well, that's fine. You can do that if you want, it's fine.
But you need
This
to
is-
find somebody else that knows.
That is one problem, yeah. So there is a way, if you can see here now, if you like, Michael's couldn't deal with the spades clubs hand over one diamond because 2 no trump shows hearts clubs and 2 diamonds shows hearts spades. And the spades clubs hand, which is dealt with by this system, which I think is quantum,
It is quantum.
yeah, then this system deals with it because you can deal with all 3 orientations by using 3 different artificial bids rather than 2 different artificial bids. I think it is a worthwhile convention, however, it is more complicated. Because it varies then if they open a major, it all transforms and changes, whereas Michael's I think is more routine to include because you essentially follow the same set of rules. That's as many majors as possible, that's as lowest on bid suits. But for me it's more simple. Okay? So I think there are definite merits to playing these systems, but you have to kind of commit to learning them because if you get them wrong it goes very wrong very quickly. If you think your partner has spades and clubs and really they have hearts and clubs, you're going to bid a lot of spades and it's going to go wrong. Okay, so I think there are merits, but I personally recommend Michael's, A, because I think it does the job pretty well, and B, because it's straightforward and doesn't require too much brain power.
And the time it doesn't work, it kind of matters less because you can still
Yes.
press spades. Which
You can still bid spades, which you prefer anyway. Yeah, so the only time it really goes wrong is when they open a minor and you have spades and the other minor, in which case you bid spades and you might miss a minor sacrifice. If you do show these 5-5 shapes, just a note for those who are not the 5-5ers, because there are going to be some of us, if the opponent show a 5-5 or 6-5 kind of distribution hand, and they do not end up as declarer, then you have a lot of information with regards to where the defensive cards are. When you reveal almost all of your shapes to the opponent, a good declarer will use that against you. So, when you are declarer and they have specified 2 suits, the other opponent has all the other cards in the other suits, basically. Not strictly speaking, because they do have 3 cards in the other suits, but typically if you're looking for a card in the other suits, it's the person who didn't do the 5-5er. And if you're looking for a card in the suit they 5-5'd in, it's the 5-5er, typically. So just beware, these two suited conventions are very, very good, but they have a price. The price is you're giving information out about your cards. Okay, and use that as a declarer. If you do end up as declarer, use that information against the opponents, shape-wise. All right, and of course, if they do end up as declarer, somehow they tend to find that the partner of the 5-5 ends up as declarer because they make an artificial bid and they bid the suit. But if the 5-5er does end up as declarer, then what often you find is that you know their shape as declarer as well. So as a defender, you can use that kind of information to your good as well. So there is a price. Okay.